Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use their promo code DNVR20 because when you do that, you save 20% off your entire purchase of that CBD infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft coffee. I, of course, am your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons. And on this episode, believe it or not, we've got to discuss another loss for the Colorado Rockies at the hands of the Los Angeles Dodgers. This one coming by a score of 6-1. There wasn't a lot of positive to take away from this game from a Colorado Rockies standpoint. We are going to challenge ourselves to bring you a couple of those inside of the analysis of everything that went wrong out there for the Rockies. And Patrick, I did want to start there in the seventh inning with Michael Givens and what went wrong as this kind of microcosm of everything that's gone wrong for the Rockies these last couple of years in general, the way the fans are feeling, because he gives up the solo opposite field home run to AJ Pollock on a pitch that was not terrible, but not where he wanted. You're frustrated. You live with it. You tip your cap, as we love to say in our game. And then they proceeded to just give 2 runs to the Dodgers. One on a wild pitch. The other on, now this again, there's a little bit of a Coors Field nuance here. The worst play of the game, probably the worst play of the season for the Colorado Rockies, a missed pickoff attempt on Mookie Betts at second base, where he scored all the way from second. That is, in no uncertain terms, embarrassing. Can't happen. But I will also say that with where the Rockies play their outfield defense, which is another thing I've had issue with going back to the beginning of last year, Garrett Hampson's a football field and a half away. He's got to come sprinting in 100 yards, literally, to get that baseball to try to throw out Mookie Betts. In a normal outfield, you're not going to have that problem, but still, it just, Patrick, when a play like that happens, you just feel like, oh, I guess we're the worst team in the whole world, and why even take the field? I get why fans feel that way when a play like that happens.
That really was the turning point as I had it, because even after Pollock's home run, it's 4-1, but you're one Josh Fuentes home run away from tying the game. I mean, that's the state of the Rockies. Right. Let's face it. He did it Friday night, and you go, wait, the kid can do it again. So 3 run, being down 3 runs isn't the worst thing in the world. Kershaw's probably at the end of his rope, and we did only see him finish up the 7th inning before Jake McGee made an appearance now at Coors Field after Wade Davis. Did not think that was going to be a thing, but McGee appeared at Coors Field after the Wade Davis era.
There was one other thing in a very similar category, by the way, where Clayton Kershaw threw a fastball to Matt Kemp that was a good 2 inches below the strike zone, and it was called a strike. And part of me was like, good, Matt, sit with that feeling. Know that that's what you were benefited by for 10 years. I just want you to know, because you could see how angry he was, but he knew Kershaw gets those calls and he legitimately benefits. So there was that part of me that was like, you know what? Good.
Yeah, that's happened to him a lot this year, but that's a very fair point because he saw that a lot out there in center field.
Yeah.
Just left or right of center going, man, I can see from out here. My boy got one. And that's how it goes when you're an inevitable first ballot Hall of Famer. So, that being said, it's 4-1, and that very much was the turning point. Because really that rally, and I don't know if, again, you don't necessarily credit the Dodgers because only thing they did was, or Mookie Betts did, was single. Barnes got hit by a pitch, second night in a row that happened. He stole second base, which good on him. Again, as a catcher, having that, Jason Kendall speed. There's a name for you, Jason Kendall.
Yep.
And Betts singles, but Barnes only gets to third. You have first and third. Again, the wild pitch. That's how Betts gets up to second. And it's right there in that series of seconds, ultimately, between the wild pitch making it 5-1 and then the error throw to the outfield where Mets scores, and you go, okay, now that was, there's no saying they would have been able to come back from 4-1, but you go, well, I can't turn this game off yet. The at-bats have been somewhat questionable. They're lacking that, joie de vivre, if you will, late in the game. They seem to
Je ne sais quoi.
on peut, yeah, a little bit, and they've tapped into that from time to time here and there, but they definitely didn't seem to have it at this point. But then again, that run number 5 on the wild pitch, the error to make it 6-1, and it was, this is not happening.
You can't just. How many times on this podcast have I said you can't just give stuff away? I mean, you certainly can't do it to the best team in baseball, and that's it. But the flip side of it also, Patrick, is of course when you only score one run, and that one run is essentially manufactured out of sheer force of willpower by Raimel Tapia, who got almost no help on that trip around the bases. Let's walk through it really quick because this is classic Raimel Tapia stuff. Ground ball up the middle that narrowly escapes defenders, 2 of them by about a foot. Each one of those guys probably could have reached out and touched that baseball. They chose not to because they thought they had a better chance. Center fielder to get him. Did not. Double on a ground ball up the middle. You take that as an extra base hit. They all count the same. Raimel Tapia leads off the game against Clayton Kershaw after the other guys have already established some momentum by grabbing a couple of early runs.
Left on left.
Left on left. And again, not just left on left, but left on the left. Left on
yes.
Hall of Famer left. Like one of the greatest lefties of all time. Raimel Tapia, what's he do? Good at bat, good contact. Continues to do the thing. People that think it's an accident still make me chuckle a little bit. Then what happens? Trevor Story on a decent little streak here, though still striking out too much. What's he do? Strikes out in the worst possible situation to strike out. You have to find a way to move the runner over there. But again, situationally, Story continues to struggle. So then Tapia just steals third.
No harm, no foul. Hey, you know what? Don't worry about Story. I will pick you up to get to third base.
Straight up picks up a star, an all-star player who's making 10 times as much money as he is. And he picks him up right there by stealing third, saying, hey, you could have hit a ground ball to the right side or a fly ball to medium deep outfield. I'll pick you up. Not only did he pick up Trevor Story there, but he also picks up Nolan Arenado, who's batting roughly 0 with runners in scoring position this season, and didn't come through with a base hit there. Hit a weak tapper off of home plate that, honestly, if the Dodgers had been playing the infield in, if it had been late in the game and they really didn't want that run to score, it would not have. Tapia would have been jogging back to the dugout again. But because they were, as the terminology goes, conceding the run, they were back. Tapia scores the only run of the game for the Rockies, but he created it by himself.
Yeah, hats off to him and helmets off to him, because usually his helmet is off of his head if he's running with that beautiful mane that he's got on top of his head. Yeah, he created that, and that's, you would love to see that more, just because that's on him, and you don't love to see that more, in a sense, because it just ultimately means that the team as a whole and the lineup isn't, doing what they need to do. But you would like to see it taken to the next level, where, he's doing some bigger things, where he's, slashing leadoff triples, and he's doing it in consecutive at bats, and really taking his game to that level that David Dahl did, last year. And I think that's his evolution. It is next year.
That's the next step. Yeah.
Much like we were kind of saying, the next step for the Rockies, 5th All-Star, if there's going to be one, is Ryan McMahon. And, that's a topic for another day. But Tapia has now kind of become that guy that can just take that step up, because, his numbers at the end of the year, or even at the midpoint range, might really not be flashy enough, I think, for All-Star voters. And I don't know if he would be ever voted in, but
Right.
I think he would garner enough interest from players, given their respect, and managers, and looking and going, wow, he's doing a lot of little things well, and he's an exciting player. And look how many bags he's stealing. Look at how he's setting the table for Colorado, and say, you know what, like almost like what Juan Pierre did in a lot of ways, where it wasn't flashy, but you go,
Now we're talking.
that's a ball player. You got to respect what this guy is doing for the team, for the lineup, generating runs, producing it with his legs, doing it in the field defensively. Like, there's a way in which he can do that, and it's not a reach for that to happen. Now, it might not mean being a perennial all-star like a David Dahl, but it does mean that Tapia could be that guy if he can continue to produce the way that he's been. And it really just starts to snowball in a positive way, because I think in the past, not that he was overthinking too much, but he would always, not always, but it's a big generalization, but a lot of times he would fall on the wrong side of luck. And, what are you doing there? Doing too much, trying to get to third base there, and you made the first or third out at third base, trying to stretch something out, or, what was that route in left field? Maybe trying to do too much, whatever it is. Now he's doing too much, and you go, well, thank God he's doing too much.
Someone's doing a little too much out there, right?
Otherwise, you've got a shutout. And, even still, if no one was paying attention, this is now the 6th time in 7 games. So Friday night was the streak breaker that they had scored 3 or less runs at Coors Field. Think about that. It's the first time it ever happened in Coors Field history in a single season. It happened once over a 5-game stretch, but it was at the end of the, I believe, 17 season, the beginning of the 18 season. But that had never happened. And this is a team that we're saying, all right, McMahon becomes their 5th All-Star. Tapia steps up, and he's borderline All-Star. You're talking 6 All-Stars. The rotation's doing what it's doing. And we could have had a shutout here tonight if it were not for Saint Raimel.
Exactly.
D-Line Co-listening?
I know, right?
This is a shirt. Saint Raimel. There you go.
Raimel. And I'm so glad you brought up the Juan Pierre comparison, because I've seen so many people throwing out Tapia's WRC plus and FWAR and stuff on this stretch he's been on to tell Rockies fans he's actually not good. Don't get excited. He hasn't been good. He's not going to be good. Juan Pierre in 2001 hit .327 for the Colorado Rockies, stole 46 bases, scored 108 runs, had a WRC plus of 91, which is kind of about where Raimel Tapia is at right now. You cannot, if you don't hit home runs, you can't put up a huge WRC plus as a member of the Colorado Rockies. You just can't. For most teams, it's difficult, but as a member of the Rockies, when you're being punished for your hits on the road, and Patrick and I talked about it, Raimel Tapia's most important skill is what? You might want to say contact. Close. That's his second most important skill. You might want to say speed. Very close. It's his third most important skill. What's his number one most important skill? Consistency. Every single time. When was the last time the dude had a terrible at-bat? Okay, they happen here and there. When was the last time the dude went over and had a terrible game at the plate? Has it happened since he's been moved into the leadoff spot? I don't think it's happened a single time.
No.
And so WRC plus me all you want. Again, and Juan Pierre kept doing it throughout his career. In 2003, 305 batting average, 65 stolen bases, a 100 WRC plus. I'm sorry. A guy who hits over 300 and steals that many bases and scores that many runs is not a league average ball player. He's doing a different thing, and that's fine. You may not trust it. Ichiro Suzuki's career WRC plus was 115. There's a place for those guys on your team, right? You just need I've never seen, back to your point, Patrick, about the shutouts at Coors Field and the low scoring runs at Coors Field. I've never seen the heart of a Rockies lineup perform this poorly for this long. That's the issue, is the heart of the order isn't getting it done.
The Yankees throw a pinstripe jersey on a player and he bats 8th in their lineup and he's going to hit 20, 25 home runs. There's magic there with those original classic
Also,
pinstripes.
right field is 12 feet away, but the pinstripes are right.
Right. But
right.
But to your point, you put a guy 3rd, 4th, or 5th in the Rockies lineup, no matter who it is, even if it's a Sunday day game and you're resting your starters. At least two of those guys are going to go off with a couple extra base hits. So that's like the equivalent in Colorado is if you bat a guy cleanup, even if it's, one of those days and you go, man, you're looking around and let's just put our best hitters towards the top of the lineup. Hampy, you're batting 4th. Hampson will have at least one extra base hit. Like that's that magic because it's Coors Field, and yet they're suffering in a major way, and they need that consistency. And you started off by talking about Juan Pierre in 2003. Oh yeah, by the way, he was the leadoff hitter for the world champion Florida Marlins in 2003.
And you know how that World Series started? It
was against the Yankees.
Yeah. First play, I don't know if it was first pitch, first play of that World Series in Yankee Stadium, bunt single, Juan Pierre. Put that in
first base is what you're saying.
Yeah, he stole first base. And you know what? He probably stole second after that. And I'm not sure how many runs he scored in that World Series, but enough to beat the Yankees.
Luis Castillo bats 2nd in that lineup. Again, not a world beater, but a consistent guy. And Juan Pierre, to that point, was so consistent that beginning in 2003, he played all 162 games for 5 straight seasons.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So
let me give you 2 more names. Willie Tavares, Kazuo Matsui. You could have hit Tulo second. You could have hit Brad Hopp or Matt Holliday second, and the advanced metrics might tell you to do that. But the Rockies were at their absolute best when they had 2 consistent, speedy dudes leading off their lineup. And I think in an ideal world, again, Story's got the speed to make that Tapia Story combo, but he strikes out too much. He's got to bring that strikeout thing down. If you could have Hampson in there and then get to those big bats, Hampson's cooled off a little bit. But like you said, there's the makings of a good lineup here. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I keep saying we've got the offseason to talk about all these things, but I would not be shocked if there's a different hitting coach.
We're planting seeds for the offseason, and using those guys, using their legs is such a key component. Putting the ball in play, like you said, Story striking out too much. You bat him leadoff. Obviously I think his approach changes in a lot of ways, and he doesn't strike out 190 times in a season. And where did I pick up that number 190 times? Because that's how many times Juan Pierre struck out over those 5 seasons from 2003 to 2007. So again, Raimel Tapia is not Juan Pierre, but if you're dreaming and you're thinking and you're doing that, fantasy manager at home or fantasy GM, and we can talk about what that might mean in a different context of fantasy GM. But nevertheless, Raimel Tapia is a guy that's getting it done for Colorado right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we do have one other bright spot that we've got to talk about. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't necessarily have bet on it. I wouldn't have gone down to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and said, hey, I believe this is going to happen. There's a few other things I've been much more confident about this season. So I've gotten some good bets in on the DraftKings Sportsbook app. Certainly during week 1, the fact that the Chiefs managed to not lose by 100, that picked me up pretty nicely.
Somehow they managed. They managed.
You got to love when DraftKings sets you up for a big win like that. They got all kinds of cool promotions too, where they're always doing stuff like that, whether it's throwing a little extra cash your way for what amounts to basically a free bet on whatever you want, or just setting you up with something like this, where week 2, real simple in the NFL, you bet $1 on any team to win, not to cover a complicated run line, or not runs. They don't score runs in the NFL, do they? They have points and touchdowns and things. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff, or whether or not you understand, the ins and outs in gambling. Though I will say, check out the DNVR Bets program. They explain it very simply, and it can be a lot of fun to get in on that. But this is as easy as it gets. Bet $1 on a team to win. Pick a team. It's $1. You don't even have to know anything about the NFL. Throw down a buck on a team whose colors you like the best. Because if that team wins, you pick up $100. You go grocery shopping. Well, you have the grocery shopping that you can do for that week. Little on behalf of DraftKings, you say this grocery shopping trip is behalf of our friends over at DraftKings. You download that top-rated sportsbook app now. Use the promo code DNVR when you sign up, and you'll get this can't-miss offer. Pick any team during week 2. Bet $1. You win $100 if they win. Simple as that. $1 to win $100. Use that promo code DNVR during sign-up for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older. Colorado only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-522-4700.
I'll take it one step further because my DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week is the New York Yankees on Sunday. It's a nice early game, 11:07 a.m. for you Rockies fans and baseball fanatics that are out there. They're going against the Red Sox, so there's always juice in that game if you didn't know. It's kind of like Rockies Mariners. You know how they are natural rivals according to MLB. It's like that, but probably a little bit more. I love the no sell on that. But Davy Garcia is, okay, the Yankees already have everything, so why not a young, exciting starting pitcher? One of these, who just made his debut, and he's a guy to root for because he's almost quite literally my size. He's 5'9", 163 pounds, 21 years old, so he's a couple years younger than me. But he's been fantastic in his 4 starts already, and he's looking to essentially try to make that playoff roster and do some big things. They could use him in the bullpen, but ultimately, again, that's just the pick of the day. If you're not really interested in doing the baseball thing tomorrow because it is NFL Sunday, you can get a little baseball in and win a little bit of money because my DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week is the New York Yankees at -177, but that's a lock. So you're gonna come away. You're gonna come away with a win. So you got to put down a little something, but you're gonna be very glad I did because my pick last week worked. Dodgers on a bullpen day did go out and shove on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball, and it's gonna happen again this week too.
Yeah, I think that's good stuff right there. Plus, you get to root for DJ LeMahieu again. Really fantastic stuff. In fact, we should probably figure out, Patrick, you and I have talked about this a little bit off air, what exactly we're going to do during the postseason before we get into the time when there's actually no baseball games whatsoever. And let us know out there, because we've been talking about, hey, maybe we just pick a team to follow a little bit, or maybe we'll give you just the postseason coverage in general, the news. I'd love to take a wide angle look on it, but maybe we attach a little more to one of the teams, and maybe we reach out to our friends over at John Boy Productions. We give Talkin' Jake a call. We get in on this Yankees bandwagon, and we do the DJ LeMahieu. I know Adam Ottavino's had a tough. I warned him. I warned him about the whole auto experience, and they've had it there in New York. But I also warned him about the DJ LeMahieu experience, and they've had that as well. So maybe that's a team we
could do a mashup.
Yeah,
do a little John Boy DNVR mashup, or we cover all the National League because. If you're kind of worried about the Dodgers and the Padres being good for the next 5 to 10 years and you go, oh, how miserable is it going to be? We will show you and tell you exactly how miserable that will be. Stay tuned. DNVR and the miserable factor. We'll get it covered all October.
One of those things. We'll have to let you know one way or the other. Still not an absolute impossibility that the Colorado Rockies, of course, sneak their way into this thing. If they do, they're going to need more performances like the one they got out of our draft king of the game from this evening, Chi González. Not a sterling performance on paper by any means, but when you go 5 innings, give up 3 earned runs, you navigate the Dodgers lineup, and you do so at Coors Field, you've kept your team in the game. You've given your club a chance to win, and not the not to blow you away right home to tell your parents about this amazing pitching performance that you saw this one day late in September. But for a guy who, especially after he gave up the first 2 runs there in the first inning, you thought, oh boy, here we go. It's going to be a terrible night. The Rockies are going to be going into their bullpen in the third. They're going to lose by double digits again. And that when he departed the field in the 5th, it was a 2-run baseball game that if the Rockies offense had shown up, they could have been right there. I think you've got to tip your cap to Chi González, who's had a very difficult season, and say, well done in what was a thankless, like a lose-lose situation for the young man.
It was a Coors Field quality start. Anytime you can get close to 6 innings and 3 earned runs, that's a Coors Field quality start. So 5 innings pitched, 3 earned runs from Chi González does earn him that DraftKings Sportsbook king of the game. And yeah, he might not have been worthy of being at the round table and being akin to a King Arthur. He might have been like the guy after King Arthur, King Dave or whoever. I don't know all of the history.
Right. Dave, Mo Curley, after that.
King Bill or whoever. Like, it was a king, so he did a good job.
Yeah, sure.
But, not King, more King Bill-like. So King Chi, not even as good as King Booker. Definitely not as good as the Macho King. But nevertheless, it's minute 26, so that's, take a shot. If you're watching live or listening at home, not in the car, but it's at minute 26, your first wrestling reference. Take that shot of your Breckenridge bourbon. You gotta have some of that.
I've only had one small sip so far. It's just like, what can I? Actually, there's some right downstairs. When's the last call? Oh, I've got time.
And we lost Drew. And Drew just
good night, everybody.
Your Wi-Fi is going to conventionally cut out, so you can go get some Breck bourbon. How convenient! It's like, Drew, I can see you walking away. Nope, it's the Wi-Fi. What? Anyway.
I'm frozen, I promise.
But yeah, Chi, he did a good enough job that, again, should get the job done. If we're, going into Thursday night's game, I'm not going to say foolishly, because doing the job and saying, hey, Colorado sweeps the Dodgers in 4 games. How do you feel about this? Obviously, it's going to be the other way around, most likely. But nevertheless, when we talk about, hey, all right, how does this sweep go down? Well, on Saturday, you got Chi going. You didn't really think he was going to make, any more starts this year. Obviously, John Gray not being able to come back this season, the need for that 5th starter now. And you go, all right, well, what if Chi goes 5 innings, keeps him in the game, 3 earned runs, and again, can finish 5. It's not as if, he starts the 6th with runners on base. You're like, okay, that's the recipe that puts you in a position where, again, you're a 3-run home run away from tying the game, taking the lead, whatever it is. Against the Dodgers, yeah, you're not going to blow them out of the water. You're not going to win every game from the bottom of the 1st on to the top of the 9th, winning at home. So you know what? You're going to take that Coors Field quality start, and just so happens that you need a lot more than that right now, unfortunately, with the state of the offense, how it's been going.
Yeah, just not there. Patrick, one of the things that you mentioned a couple little bits of news items there. So since we hadn't talked about it, I figure we'll close out on this. Now, we have talked about John Gray being out for the rest of the year a little bit. Minor news today, I guess, in a way, something that we probably expected. But the Wade Davis era, and therefore the old Super Bowl pen era in Colorado has come to a close, almost certainly, with Wade Davis being DFA'd. Now, them being off the hook for the option for next year. AJ Ramos got called up. He looked like he was okay. The results were fine. I'm not going to go running to the hills about his 92-mile-an-hour fastball that he got away with, but
it's not enough for an AJ is okay article exclusive. Not enough. Needs a few more of those.
AJ is okay. Well, he was better than Wade Davis, and it's another one, Patrick. And we saw you mentioned Jake McGee coming back out and looking a little bit better tonight, but another one of these guys who just Great resume coming in, comes to Coors Field, and was never himself again. And it just ends that way. And of course, the overwhelming reply, to the DNVR Rockies tweet of just the news, Wade Davis has been DFA'd, AJ Ramos has been called up, was just basically, hallelujah, finally, he's gone. And that's really, it really is too bad for a guy who was at one point one of the best relievers in baseball. And Colorado Rockies fans will think nothing other than negative thoughts about him.
It's a lot of, what have you done for me lately? And in 2018, was an all-star, and again, things go differently in that Brewers series in the NLDS where they get swept. You can, if you make more October memories, you can definitely forgive, I think, a lot. And Davis had nothing to do with that sweep. Unfortunately, it was really, again, more about the offense not coming through against the Brewers, but had a huge season. But a lot of guys have had a huge season that weren't making that kind of money, and that's really where the crux of it comes down. Because if you think of Greg Holland, and he got paid pretty well for one season, but he was perfect in that, where it was, hey, the length was just right. He came in, did what he had to do, and got the job done. And you go, great, we're all for that. But because the marriage was so much longer, it was, you flam. Is it better to burn out or to fade away? The great Neil Young lyric. And for Wade Davis, he faded away, and you go, you don't remember those guys quite as well. Whereas, you take a Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain, and a guy like Juice WRLD, who you might not be too familiar with, but if those of you out there who know, you say, wow, yeah, he burned out. He died way too young and too early before, he could be appreciated. Notorious B.I.G., Tupac, a lot of those guys.
We're
right
going to go DMS.
Yeah, they're revered because they never sucked. They never had a 2019, 2020 Wade Davis season. And that's probably the last time you're ever going to hear Tupac being compared to Wade Davis.
I was going to say, no, I love it. Yeah.
But that's kind of the way it goes. And, and then you've got the fact that he was a part of a trio, Jim Morrison, absolutely. He was a part of a trio with Brian Shaw and Jake McGee, and it just tethers all those guys together. And, instead of Wade Davis being, fantastic for 1/3 the length of his contract, and maybe it's slightly more than that technically because this year wasn't a full season,
right.
But we'll say 1/3. You go, yeah, but Shaw and McGee were 0 for 3 on those. So really, collectively, it's 1 for 9, and it's like it's atrocious. And as you said, it's the end of an era.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'll have a lot more thoughts on that. I have a lot more thoughts. I have many thoughts in my brain heads, and I'm just trying to figure out which one of them I'm going to let out. I think that's the place where I'm at this point. It's like, but yeah, no. The end of this bullpen era. The short version of what's going to be much longer later is B+ concept, F- execution, and that's a tough place to sit. And so we'll see what happens next. But it's on a lot of different people, including the individuals involved. We seem to be very good at letting individuals off the hook for ultimately their own output into the world sometimes. And I feel like Brian Shaw and Jake McGee and Wade Davis, at some point, just as individuals, have got to accept responsibility for what has happened here. But obviously, there's plenty of that to spread around. So
no doubt.
We'll have plenty we'll have plenty of more conversation on all of that. And believe it or not, the rest of this Colorado Rockies season, I have got an article very close to finished about why watch What are you watching? Why are you doing this? Well, I hope what will be a comforting reason for those of you who, if nothing else, can't stop. For those of you who just have to watch your Colorado Rockies. I'll go ahead and give you, I don't think I've got the exact phrasing of the headline down right now, but you deserve a break. You deserve, as Colorado Rockies fans, to get to watch these final, we got 9 left, 9 games of baseball, and enjoy whatever you can enjoy out of it. You had, again, I don't want to blow the article. You had a long off season. You had a very short season. It didn't go the way you wanted. Take these final 9 games to just remember why you love the game. The game, not the laundry or the outcomes or the need for certain things to happen, any of that stuff. You got 9 more until they stop. So let's enjoy the game.
Yeah, because when it's over, that's it. So
it's done.
Yeah, definitely enjoy it. Have a bit of gratefulness, so to speak, and of being able to appreciate it. And I think your article is definitely going to illuminate a lot more than maybe people are realizing. As far as, hey, you know what, 9 games. Even if you say, all right, well, if they get swept by the Dodgers, I don't know how you can count that one. So okay, fine. Starting Monday, 8 games. There's a lot to keep an eye on, a lot of storylines, and we'll leave it at that. But it's not necessary to completely forget about the Colorado Rockies and turn away. You gotta keep grinding. You gotta grind as fans sometimes, and do those things, because even when Colorado gets to the point where they get officially eliminated from the 8th seed and from the 2020 postseason, they're gonna have games that they're gonna need to play. And at bats and matchups against hitters. So they're going to have to do their best, because there's a lot more there than you realize, because it's not about winning and losing at that point. It's winning and losing those little battles. You do the little things well, the big things take care of themselves. So it's going to be about the little things. And there's a lot of those little things to keep an eye on the final week of the Colorado Rockies 2020 season.
Absolutely. So keep it here with us. Make sure that you're following on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick D. Lyons, that you're given a subscribe to the DNVR.com so that you don't miss out on any of that written content. Plus, you get discounts on shirts, hats, masks, bigger beer, all kinds of cool stuff for hanging out with us, being a part of the DNVR community. Easy for me to say. Of course, we really appreciate hanging out with all of you. Hopefully, I'll get to see you down here at the DNVR bar once or twice before the season is out. If you can't make it, and even if you can, actually, that qualification doesn't need to be in there, because we hope that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, and no matter how you're dealing with this current stretch of Rockies baseball, you just continue to be absolutely awesome out there. We will continue to be absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman in here. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.